Welcome to our deep dive. And today we're tackling John 17:20-23.
Ah, yeah, familiar territory for pastors and Bible study leaders, I'd say.
Right, it's one of those passages where we all know the verses, but always looking for a fresh, take a new angle.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to fall into that trap of just rehashing the same old interpretations.
Exactly. So we've been doing some digging for you, going through sermons from 12 different pastors, all on this passage.
Trying to find the nuggets, the non-obvious stuff.
Exactly, the stuff that makes you go, huh, I never thought about it that way before.
Yeah, definitely found some gems.
All right, I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah.
So what kind of unique approaches did these pastors take? Any overarching themes stand out?
Well, every sermon had its own flavor, for sure. But one thing that was consistent throughout was a strong emphasis on unity.
Okay, but not just like surface level agreement.
No, not at all. It went deeper than that. It was about this kind of unity of purpose and love.
Okay, yeah, because anyone who's ever led a Bible study knows that trying to get everyone to agree on every little detail is a recipe for disaster.
Totally. And a lot of these pastors connected this call for unity back to the Trinity.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, they were saying that this unity that Jesus prays for, it's not just some nice ideal, It's a reflection of the unity within the Godhead itself.
Wow, that's profound. It's not just about getting along for the sake of getting along. It's about reflecting something much deeper, something that points back to the very heart of God.
Exactly. And that's where some of these pastors really took it to another level.
Like what? Give me an example.
Oh, Andy Stanley from North Point Community Church, he had a really relevant sermon on this.
Oh, I love Andy's.
Yeah, he's great. And in this sermon, he dove straight into the issue of political division within the church.
Oh, that's a hot topic.
Yeah, it is. And he didn't shy away from it at all. He challenged his listeners to put their unity in Christ above their political affiliations.
That's bold. Especially in today's world where it feels like everything is so politically charged.
Right. And he didn't just stop at, hey, everyone be nice to each other. He actually brought in some research.
Really?
Yeah, a study that showed the negative impact of political polarization on Christian communities.
So he backed up his claims with some hard data.
He did. He wanted to show people that this isn't just some theoretical concern. It has real-world consequences.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, so Andy Stanley tackling the political divide head-on.
Yeah.
What other interesting approaches did you see?
Well, Kanawha Valley Church, they took a totally different approach. They structured their whole sermon around the concept of a chiasm.
A chiasm. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Yeah, so chiasm, it's a type of Hebrew poetry where concepts are presented in an ABDA pattern.
Oh, interesting. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it creates the symmetry that emphasizes the central point.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could apply to a sermon. But how did they connect it to John 17:20-23?
Well, they went through the passage verse by verse, showing how this chiastic structure actually reveals the theme of glory.
Okay, so they used this literary device to uncover a deeper layer of meaning in the passage.
Exactly.
I love that. It's like they were using a secret decoder ring to unlock hidden truths.
Kind of, and it really brings out a nuance that you might miss if you were just reading the passage straight through.
That's brilliant. Okay, so we've got Andy Stanley tackling political division and Kanawha Valley Church using a chiasm to reveal the theme of glory. What other creator interpretations did you come across?
Well, a lot of the pastors use some really effective sermon illustrations to bring the concept of unity to life, like analogies, stories, things that people can really connect with.
Oh yeah, I'm a sucker for a good sermon illustration.
Yeah.
Always trying to find new ways to make these concepts stick.
Right. Well, there were some good ones.
Lay it on me. What were some of the highlights?
All right. Well, Novation Church, they used a comparison that really made me laugh. They asked the congregation to imagine the Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh no. Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Right. And that was their point. They were using this image to drive home how destructive division can be.
It's a great image. You can just picture those two families trying to work together on a project. It would be chaos.
Exactly. And they were saying that when we're constantly at odds with each other, when we're more focused on our differences than our shared mission, we become ineffective.
It's a powerful reminder that disunity has real consequences.
For sure. So that was Novation Church. And then we have the Source Church. They went in a more relatable direction.
Oh, so.
They painted this picture of A family road trip to Michigan, like the kind where the kids are fighting in the back seat, everyone's hungry and
Oh, I
cranky.
can feel the tension already. I've definitely been on those road trips.
Right. It's not exactly a picture of unity and harmony.
Not at all.
And that's the point they were making. They contrasted this chaotic car ride with the kind of unity Jesus is praying for in John 17:20-23.
So it's a reminder that true unity isn't about the absence of conflict or differences. It's about having a shared purpose that binds us together.
Yeah, exactly. And that even when things get messy, even when we're disagreeing or feeling frustrated, we can still choose to focus on what unites us.
I love that. It's very practical and relatable.
And then we have Crazy Love Church taking a bit of a sportier approach.
Oh, tell me about it.
They drew a parallel between the Los Angeles Lakers, striving for a championship,
Yeah.
and the church's mission of spreading the gospel.
Okay, I can see that. Different players, different skills, but all working together towards a common goal.
Right, and they emphasized how each player has their own unique role to play. But it's only when they come together as a team, putting aside their egos and personal agendas, that they can achieve true greatness.
It's a great analogy. It reminds us that unity isn't about uniformity. It's about embracing our differences and recognizing that we need each other.
That's a key takeaway, for sure. It's not enough to just talk about unity. We have to understand why it's so important to Jesus. What are the implications of living it out?
Yeah, it goes beyond just intellectual understanding. It challenges us to put our faith into action.
Exactly. And that's where some of these sermons really shine. They move beyond theory and offer practical insights into what unity looks like in real life.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some examples.
Well, one theme that came up again and again was the importance of going beyond surface-level agreement. Remembering that true unity isn't about seeing eye to eye on every single issue.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, that's just not realistic. We all come from different backgrounds, different experiences.
Exactly. And that diversity is actually a strength, not a weakness.
Totally. It's what makes the body of Christ so unique and beautiful.
And one sermon that really unpacked this well was from Kingsford Church of Christ.
Well, what do they say?
They shared a story about how their church partnered with another congregation that had a very different style of worship, even some theological differences.
Wow, that's bold. I can imagine that could be challenging.
It was. There were definitely some bumps along the way. But what's inspiring is that they chose to focus on their shared commitment to the gospel, on their common mission.
And through that shared purpose, they were able to overcome their differences.
They did. And they built some genuine bridges and achieved a level of unity that went way beyond just tolerating each other.
That's a great example. It shows that unity isn't about compromising our convictions. It's about finding that common ground, that shared love for Christ that transcends those differences.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that our unity is rooted in something much bigger than our individual preferences.
Okay, so moving beyond surface level agreement and finding that shared purpose, what else? What are some other practical ways we can foster unity in our churches and communities?
Well, another key theme was humility.
Humility.
Yeah, it came up in a lot of the sermons.
I can see how that might be a tough sell for some people. Sometimes it can sound a bit passive or even weak.
I get that. But the way these pastors framed it, it wasn't about being a doormat or pretending we don't have strong convictions.
Okay, so what was it about?
It was about recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that our way isn't always the only way, and that we can learn from others, even those who hold different views.
Yeah, it's about being open to other perspectives, even if we don't fully agree.
Exactly. And Andy Stanley's sermon had this great quote from C.S. Lewis.
Oh, I love C.S. Lewis.
Me too. Anyway, he said that humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
good. It's such a subtle but important distinction.
Right. It's not about denying our own worth or value, but about shifting our focus outward towards others.
It's about recognizing that we are all part of the same body and that we need each other.
Exactly. So humility, that's a big one. And then one more that stood out was authenticity.
Authenticity, how does that tie into unity?
Well, think about it. How can we truly be unified if we're all hiding behind masks, pretending to be someone we're not? If we're afraid to be vulnerable, to share our struggles and doubts, how can we truly connect on a deep level?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to build trust and genuine relationships if we're not being real with each other.
And Kanawha Valley Church had a really powerful message about this. They talked about how the glory that Jesus prays for in John 17:20-23, it's not some superficial shine or outward perfection.
Right, it's not about pretending to have it all together.
Exactly. It's the glory of a community where people can be vulnerable, where they can take off their masks and be fully known and loved.
That's beautiful. It's about creating a space where it's safe to be real, to be honest about our struggles, and to know that we'll be accepted and supported.
Exactly. And that kind of vulnerability, that shared humanity, that's what really binds us together. That's what allows us to experience true unity, not in spite of our differences, but because of them.
It's a powerful reminder that true unity is forged in the fires of authenticity and grace. It's not about pretending to be perfect, but about embracing our imperfections and allowing God's love to work through them. This is all so rich. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Me too. But alas, we are limited by the constraints of time. We'll be back for our final part after a quick.
Okay, we're back, and I'm still thinking about those sermon illustrations.
Yeah, those were pretty good.
Really creative ways to bring this idea of unity to life.
For sure. And it's important, because sometimes these theological concepts can feel a bit abstract.
Yeah, totally. It's like, how do we actually apply this to our lives, to our churches?
Right. So these illustrations, they help us bridge that gap between theory and practice.
Exactly. So let's dive back in. Did any other churches use humor in their illustrations?
Well, Lake Point Church, they took a more historical approach.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
They reminded their congregation that the early church, they faced a lot of persecution.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were living in a very hostile environment.
Exactly. And yet, despite all of that, they thrived. And Lake Point Church argued that one of the key reasons for their success was their unwavering unity.
That's powerful. So even in the face of adversity, they were able to stay united.
Yeah, and they were known for their love and care for one another. They were willing to sacrifice for each other to put the needs of the community above their own.
It's a reminder that true unity, it's not just about words. It's about actions. It's about how we treat each other, especially when things get tough.
Right, and that's something that we can learn from the early church. They set a pretty high bar.
For sure. So Lake Point Church, looking back at the early church for inspiration, what other historical insights did these pastors offer?
Well, Kingsford Church of Christ, they brought up another interesting point. They talked about how radical Jesus's prayer for unity actually was.
Oh, in what way?
Well, at that time, there was a huge divide between Jews and Gentiles.
Yeah, like a massive cultural and religious chasm.
Exactly. And yet Jesus prays for them to be one, to be unified.
It's like he's completely disregarding the social norms of the time.
Right. He's saying that our unity in him, it transcends all of these earthly divisions.
It's a powerful reminder that the gospel, it's meant to break down barriers, not build them up.
Yeah, it's about bringing people together from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life.
So you've got Lake Point Church highlighting the unity of the early church and Kingsford Church of Christ emphasizing the radical nature of Jesus's prayer.
Yeah.
What other practical nuggets did these pastors offer?
Well, one thing that came up a lot was the idea of unity as a witness.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, Limitless Life TV, they put it really well in their sermon.
Okay. What'd they say?
They said that our unity, it's not just about us. It's about showing the world the reality of God's love.
Wow, that's powerful. So it's not just an internal thing. It has an outward impact.
Exactly. They were saying that when the world sees a group of people who genuinely love and care for each other, even though they're different, it makes them stop and take notice.
It's like a living, breathing testament to the power of the gospel.
Right. Because the world is full of division, conflict, hatred.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And so when they see a group of people who have chosen to put those things aside and embrace unity, it challenges their assumptions.
It makes them question their own beliefs and values.
Exactly. And it opens up the door for conversations about faith, about hope, about the possibility of a different way of living.
So it's like unity becomes this bridge between the church and the world.
Exactly. And it's one of the most powerful ways we can share the gospel.
I love that. It's a reminder that our actions speak louder than our words.
For sure. So if we want to make a difference in the world, if we want to see people come to know Christ, we need to start by living out this unity that he prayed for.
And that's a challenge for all of us, isn't it?
It is. It's not always easy.
No, but it's worth striving for.
Absolutely. And it's something that we can all work towards no matter where we are in our faith journey.
So true. Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of John 17:20-23.
Me too. It's amazing how much depth and richness there is in this passage.
And I love how these pastors have challenged us to move beyond the typical platitudes and really wrestle with the practical implications of unity.
Yeah, they've given us a lot to think about and a lot to put into practice.
For sure. Well, we'll be back for our final part after a quick solvent. Okay, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into John 17:20-23.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, you know? exploring all these different sermons, uncovering all these little nuggets of wisdom.
I feel like we've really gone beyond those Sunday school answers and wrestled with some of the deeper implications of this passage.
Definitely. And these pastors, they've given us a lot to chew on.
So much, from
Yeah.
challenging interpretations to creative illustrations, practical takeaways, the whole shebang.
It's been great. As we wrap up, I'm curious what stood out to you the most. What's the one big idea you want our listeners to walk away with?
That's a good question. I think for me, it all comes down to understanding the why behind unity. Like, why did Jesus pray so passionately for his followers to be one? It wasn't just about, creating a warm and fuzzy feeling or avoiding conflict. It was about something much bigger than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Several of these sermons, they highlighted the idea that unity itself, it's a witness to the world.
Oh, that's right. They were saying that in a world that's so fractured by division and conflict and hatred, a unified body of believers, it stands out.
Exactly. It's like this beacon of hope,
Yes.
a living testament to the power of love and reconciliation.
And that ties back to the very heart of the gospel message, doesn't it?
It does. It's about reflecting the love and unity of the Trinity, showing the world a glimpse of the divine through our love for one another.
That's what makes this passage so much more than just some nice sentiment. It's a call to action, a challenge to live out the gospel in a way that transforms not just our own lives, but the world around us.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, I'm all ears.
We've talked a lot about the how of unity, right? But what about the who? Who are the people in your community, in your sphere of influence, who are longing for that sense of belonging, that connection that only true unity can bring?
Ooh, that's good. It's a challenge to look beyond our own church walls, beyond our comfort zones, and see the opportunities for unity all around us.
Because at the end of the day, that's what John 17:20-23 is all about. It's about extending that circle of unity wider and wider until it encompasses the whole world.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of this passage and a renewed passion for building unity in my own life and ministry.
Me too. And I hope our listeners feel the same way. Remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. Keep exploring, keep digging deeper, and keep striving for that unity that Jesus prayed for.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep diving deep.